Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Trey, and let's talk about where have the real DC fans gone. I can tell you where they've gone. They have left the building to never return again. Just a few of them. It's just a few. It's a few of them here, but for the most part, most real DC fans have moved on. You know what I'm saying? And you ain't got nobody to blame but Warner Brothers themselves. Warner Brothers and DC comic books for all of the years of BS that nobody asked them to do. This is their fault. And it's just something that they're gonna have to live with. It is what it is. Like, get mad all you want to, but the truth is in the pudding. That's really your answer. If you really want to know what happened, the answer is WB and DC comic books have pushed away DC fans for casual audience, for Twitter weirdos, for quick Marvel success, and that's really it. Oh, attacking the fans, calling fans homophobic, racist, cultists, from the Snyder stuff, ignoring their plea of restore the Snyderverse, firing Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, two of the most iconic actors playing to portray the role of Batman and Superman, and you just said screw that. Your CEO Ann Cernoff telling DC fans that that the Snyder cut, even though it did successfully well, it is a dead end. There's nothing more to do for Darkseid at all. Like, even though it was leading up to Darkseid, y'all said hell no on a body bag. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Oh, and you hired that weirdo James Gunn, and he announced that he's going to reboot the DCEU. So all five of your movies that you had, or four movies that you had upcoming this year were all neutered because, hey, we're going to do a reboot, even though DC did do a reboot before with their comic books, and that shit failed. You would think after the New 52, which literally killed DC comic books, you would think that, hey, let's not do a reboot. And then if we're doing a reboot, we're doing a soft reboot. So certain characters that James Gunn wants is going to be there, but the characters that people actually want aren't going to be there. Oh my God, I wonder why nobody, I wonder where our DC fans are at. You have burnt them out, dum-dums. Like, how the hell, as a company, you think that you could actually promise something to the fans, lead something up to the fans, and then don't deliver it after they've begged several times over? And instead of shutting the fuck up and listening to that fan base and giving them what they want, you said hell no. Oh, because after Aquaman, all of your movies did so well. What, the only successful movie almost is Black Adam? And it made nearly $400 million, and that movie really wasn't even released worldwide. Because I'm not giving, and maybe Wonder Woman 1984, but, which I'm quite sure if it was in theaters, it probably would have made a little bit more money than it did before. But y'all did that day-and-day release on you. And honestly, even then, it wasn't a good movie anyway. So I don't know what to tell y'all. And then, of course, you got your stupid The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. Even then, that shit still didn't make no money neither. Like, I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, y'all, everything that you guys are doing hasn't really been working, honestly. And there's not really much excuses. You can't really use a pandemic as an excuse, because there was a lot of things that came out during the pandemic that still made money. You know what I mean? And even then, a lot of a lot of things for Warner Brothers, they release that stuff physically too. So if Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad were good movies like people say they were, even if it was free on HBO Max, there are always going to be people who are going to buy it. Funny how nobody really brought Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad that James Gunn did, but Zack Snyder's Justice League was brought several times over. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Call a spade. And what? They re-release Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, and people still went and brought it, and it was on HBO Max and them for free to watch. Again, you make it make sense. I don't understand how Suicide Squad, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, they were on Max too. They were on HBO Max too for free after you buy the subscription for it. But yet for some reason people went and brought the re-releases of those movies. Oh, and guess what WB's doing right about now? Oh, they're re-releasing the Zack Snyder trilogy, Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, and Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. And people are already buying it. It's already been sold out again. I don't know what the fuck to tell you, WB. Your audience clearly told you what the fuck they wanted. Again, everybody who's talking about, oh, I don't like Zack Snyder, Justice League, I don't like the darker take of Superman and all that bullshit, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Ain't nobody talking about your ass. Nobody gives a damn. Because at the end of the day, it's about money. And whether you like those movies or not, those movies get money. And that's what Warner Brothers need right now. The audience was there because you want to know why? Because it was a realistic take on superheroes that we really never really get a chance to see. We always see superheroes in lighthearted nature. The only superhero we really don't see is Batman. Batman is always a gritty kind of thing. But what would happen if we saw superheroes being taken seriously in the real world? That's what Snyder was doing. Snyder was just was ahead of y'all. And people who say, oh, his characters, actually they were, because if you actually pick up a fucking DC comic book, yeah, DC is not as dark as you really think. I mean, it's not as lighthearted as you think it is. Oh yeah, it's very colorful, but the stories are actually a little bit more darker than given credit for compared to Marvel. Yeah, Marvel is the world outside your window, which that's great. Hallelujah, all that good stuff. But DC stories, now they something. They are definitely something. Especially when people will be like, Superman wouldn't or whatever. Honestly, Superman would. And that's a fault again on us fans. And that's a fault on WB for not exploring the complexity of Superman outside of just being the big blue Boy Scout. Some people forget that. Remember, this is a line that Batman said before. When he said to Wonder Woman, he said Superman, Clark Kent, even though he's an alien with the power of a god, he is probably the most human out of all of us. And remember how he was raised. He was raised on a farm. You know what I'm saying? By two Christian hard farm workers, the Kents. So there is always complexity with this character. He's probably is more connected human-wise than anything else, and it's kind of funny as if we're not allowed to explore that. It reminds me of how, like, for instance, Gwen Stacy from Spider-Man. Everybody knows that she's the girlfriend of Peter Parker. Everybody knows that she's the one that's supposed to die, get her neck snapped, or all that good stuff, right? Yeah, we know that, right? But for some reason, when Marvel tries to add complexity to her character, everybody freak the fuck out and be like, she would never, nope, there you go. You envision something perfect of her without thinking that she is human, that she can make mistakes. So when it's kind of funny, it's the same thing with Superman. oh, Superman is the big blue Boy Scout and he always does wrong. He never questions anything. No, pick up a fucking Superman comic book. There has been plenty of times where he has questioned the validity of humans, the validity of himself. There has been tough choices that he had to make before. Let's stop acting like he never done it. Oh, and all about that collateral damage. Again, pick up a Superman comic book when he's fighting. When he's fighting a villain or whatever. Yeah, he tries his best to save people, but at the same time, he gets sent into buildings all over Metropolis and stuff like that. Nobody's complaining, oh my God, it's such collateral damage. Well, it's kind of funny how we complain with Man of Steel, but completely didn't complain about, I don't know, the Avengers, MCU, like, and then what? We had like one time where they kind of talked about it, and then there barely was no ramifications or consequences for that. While Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice literally charged that and challenged that. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, y'all keep missing the point of these characters, or because you want the characters to be what you remember them to be, without understanding that these characters grow and change, especially Superman. You know what I'm saying? Because let's be honest, WB did try to go back to the classic Boy Scout Superman, which was with Superman Returns. They didn't get the acknowledgement from the critics or whatever, or the fans, because y'all didn't really like it, because y'all was like it was kind of boring or whatever. But it was based around the Superman that you guys remembered. So are we gonna admit that maybe the Christopher Reeve Superman is a little bit outdated? I'm just being honest. That's not disrespecting Christopher Reeve Superman, but even he knew that there's complexity with Superman, and that you have to grow and change from that. And I'm quite sure if he was still alive, I'm quite sure he would even say the same thing as well when it comes to Superman. I mean, that's just my personal opinion on the whole situation. But another thing too is that WB, you broke your directors. You know what I'm saying? You keep interfering with your director's visions and not trusting them. You hired them to do a movie, and because you didn't get the $1 billion that you wanted, you're like, ooh, fuck this shit. You know what I'm saying? Which is stupid on you, because why would you assume that you were going to get $1 billion just because Superman and Batman? You still have to build the audience up. Like, people were like, I don't understand how you do a movie about Batman and Superman and it doesn't make $1 billion. Well, there's been plenty of Batman Superman movies and material that doesn't make $1 billion. You know what I'm saying? The reason why it didn't make $1 billion or $2 billion is because it was not built up yet. Which, WB, you forced Zack to put Batman in a Man of Steel 2 sequel, and then said, hey, also, you need to set up the Justice League and Wonder Woman. How the fuck did you think this was going to work? And then, not to mention, the critics, you let the critics trash and tarnish every DC movie that came out, except for the Dark Knight trilogy. You let them destroy that, and at the time, audience were heavily believing Rotten Tomatoes. They were. You can say they weren't. Yes, fans were believing every fucking thing the critics were saying about Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. And WB, I mean, any DC movies outside of the Dark Knight trilogy, they were believing it. They were. Like, get the hell, like, think about it. They said Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice 27%, that it was a horrible movie. But then they were praising other movies that were literally terrible. The audience agreed that it was terrible movies, but the critics were giving it 90%. Like, especially a lot of the recent Disney Marvel movies. And for some reason, every Marvel movie that was coming out at that time was just a success, even if there were problems with the movie. And if you try to say anything bad about those movies, people would be like, oh no, something's wrong with you or whatever, but let's bash WB. Let's bash the fans who actually like this shit. Let's bash the fans that actually show up for it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Because right here they were like, after a string of bombs with the reboot on the horizon, Warner Brothers has more than make fans believe a man can fly. It makes them to believe that this time the willingness to to see that flight to its destination. So basically, they like, it's been a decade since Man of Steel ushered in the DCU, and 10 years this very week since Ben Affleck was announced to play Batman in Zack Snyder's cinematic saga. We all know the turmoil and endeavor ultimately resulted, and seemingly careless reconstruction of the DC that followed partially as a result. But for now, let's journey back to 2013, the simpler age, undeniable, passionate age. The noise from comic book fans circling the new minted DC extended universe was nearly deafening that summer. Everyone had an opinion on Man of Steel, with this controversial third act in which Superman killed Zod, and casting of Affleck, who still hasn't quite come clean of the spandex stretch in 2003's Daredevil, which y'all need to fucking let that shit go, bitches. Like, first off, that movie wasn't even that goddamn bad. Let's stop acting like Daredevil flopped at the box office. It was a fucking commercial success. And honestly, Ben Affleck's Daredevil suit looks more accurate than that fucking bullshit from the MCU, honestly. And he actually looks more like Matt Murdock than Charlie Fox. I don't give a damn what the fuck y'all want to say. You can get mad all you want to. I'm just being honest. And at the time they were restricted, because remember, Fox was helping Marvel asses out. They still have restrictions. Y'all keep forgetting about the time that was. You know what I'm saying? That movie was not as bad as y'all try to make it seem. All right? Let's cut the crap. The DC EU was shiny and new, and whether reactions were positive or negative, everyone had opinion on its future. Fan theories took to hold quickly. Comic book creators took side. Bloggers discovered that they could gain control of the narrative early. DC fans fortified defenses and stockpiled ammunition. In a few years, they would take supposedly comic movie superheroes and turn them into pure misery, war, personal attack, vendettas, cult mentality, antagonist journalism, career-altering decisions. Cut to 10 years later, Henry Cavill is no longer Man of Steel. Ben Affleck is no longer Batman. Zack Snyder's building a universe at Netflix with the Army of Dead and Rebel Moon franchises. Josh Whedon is personal non grata in Hollywood. And the guy who showed everyone how successful Guardians of the Galaxy could be just wrapped up the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and on a successful note, is now the co-head of DC Studios. Like, that did much of shit. Together, they are relaunching the universe as the DCU, and as for the DCU, well, the Blue Beetle's in theaters. Though sadly, it seems few know it. It is preliminarily installed to the DCU, paving the way for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Or is it DCU's first entry? Few seems to know the answers. Given Gunn's perplexed comments that Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, but not the first DCU film. I mean, it might as well be, but it flopped at the box office. But you know, y'all are still give people who flopped at the box office a sequel or more leeway than somebody who actually gave y'all success. Zack Snyder, Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill. No. Let's keep giving Margot Robbie, James Gunn, Peter Safran more things to do, even after failure after failure. A decade of constant shifting executive musical chairs, overly aggressive critics, overly aggressive fans have left DC fandom a house divided, reflection of which we can see all over social media. It's a swamp that even Swamp Thing would be hesitated. And they're just asking these questions. I'm not about to read all this bullshit, but you're asking where have the fans gone? I mean, y'all divided the fans. This was on the studio's fault. The studio should have fortified and listened to what the fandom wanted. You can get mad all you want to. You can say how terrible those movies were that Snyder was doing. But what Snyder was leading up with, stories that he had, it was leading up to something. Regardless of whether you like it or not, The fact of the matter is, his stories were leading up to something, and as a studio, they should have shut the fuck up and led with whatever Snyder had. You can change, tweak a little bit, say, hey, we don't really like that one or whatever. But honestly, you should have ran with the vision that Snyder had, because clearly the fans were there. People were showing up. People were coming more and more for these movies and stuff like that. If you stayed the course and if you believed in the vision, you would have had a successful line. The fact of the matter is that you thought that you can downplay Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman in the DCEU is a crime. Shame, honestly. You can't have the DC universe without the Trinity. If the Trinity isn't together, if the Trinity doesn't work, then guess what? Your universe doesn't work. And the moment that they got rid of Henry Cavill Superman, Ben Affleck's Batman, and just did whatever they wanted to with Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, you fucked up. You don't have the ability or the right to try to do other superhero movies or other tadpole, because you didn't have the foundation right. The reason why Guardians of the Galaxy was successful is because the foundation of the MCU was together. Because let's be honest, if Guardians of the Galaxy just randomly came out of nowhere, no, it would not have been financially as successful as it was then. The reason why you had it is because the MCU was financially stable. It's the same thing with Ant-Man and all these other characters that I can tell you, honestly, by themselves, they would not have made the money that they did. But because the MCU was stable, they had enough to experiment on. You didn't even build that up before you jumped to adolescent characters. I can get the Shazam movie. I can get the first Shazam movie. But what I can't get behind is the fact that after Justice League, regardless if it was the Joss Whedon version or the Zack Snyder version, you should have had a solo Ben Affleck movie for Batman, and you should have had a Man of Steel already. That should have been filmed. That should have been in production regardless. So right after Shazam, you would have got Batman and you would have got Man of Steel 2. Period. There was no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And then you could have did Green Lantern and the Flash afterwards, since you wanted to still do the Justice League before everything else. Okay, fine, whatever. But you should have had Batman, Superman movies ready. So I don't know what to tell you. Like, you have destroyed everything. And then for me as a DC fan, I've seen y'all destroy and reboot so many times that I have to wash my hands clean from y'all asses. Because you keep doing it. Like, what's the definition of insanity? Keep doing the same shit over again and expecting different results. Stop doing the fucking reboots. Stop taking characters away from us. Stop rebooting fucking characters just because because you're getting criticism. Stop fucking turning characters gay. Stop race swapping characters. Your fans told you what they wanted. When you had billboards and audience saying, restore the Snyderverse, you should have shut the fuck up, restored it, and continued on the plans that Zack had. Period. That's what you should have did. You caused this problem, DC, Warner Brothers, by letting your fandom get divided, by attacking your fandom, calling them all kinds of names, and expecting them to show the fuck up for your movies. No. Once you fired Henry Cavill, that was it. Nobody cares about what the fuck James Gunn about to do. They don't. People barely cared about the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, because even though that movie was a little bit financially successful, it still didn't make what y'all wanted, because y'all expected more from that movie. Well, how could you? Because first off, that was supposed to be a Batman, Ben Affleck solo movie, and not only that, Robert Pattinson was a terrible casting. Zoe Kravitz was a terrible casting, and Jeffrey Wright was also a terrible casting. You already had 3 controversial casting. Then you had a controversial bat suit as well. And you also had where you also got rid of a A-lister actor for a B-lister actor. let's call a thing now. I'm just being honest. Like, this is your fault. So you want to know where your fans are at? Your fans are gone, and they're probably most likely not coming back. And again, this is what you wanted. You told fans that it's not for them. You told them that if they don't like it, don't watch it, right? You the ones who changed things around because, oh, there was criticism. And what you don't do is completely change everything around. Listen to what they're saying, and then maybe like, hey, let's see what we're doing. Because honestly, I can see if Man of Steel had flopped at the box office, then maybe it's time to panic. But they didn't. So for you to panic that quickly because you got criticism is completely stupid. But then you let the critics continue to criticize your movies. And every time they criticize your movies, y'all want to make changes for that. That make it make sense. But hey, this is what you get. So live with that shame, DC and Warner Brothers. Live with it. Your fans are gone, and most of them aren't coming back. You know how to get them back, but you're not going to do it. So why should we even bother? Y'all owe your fans an apology. You need to start giving them what they want. And until you do that, go back to what your fans want in not only comic books, but in the movies. You're never going to get that fan base back again. Because now you have to show them that they can be trusted. Why would I put my time and effort into another universe when if y'all don't like it or if the movie didn't make the money, y'all are going to reboot? So no thank you. You caused your own problem. This is what you get, DC. Live with it. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.